Welcome to Loleventvods. Watch the full game of today's LPL 2025 matchup.
A certain role. So like, oh no, you don't get Vi after the game one? Okay, well now you play Xin Zhao. Oh, you don't have Xin? Now you play Nocturne. You know, they're all similar. And the same thing with mid lane, you just go down like the list of mages or marksmen are kind of available during that time. Doinby says, screw that. You're playing Aurora? I'm playing Ryze into that. I'm playing Lee Sin into Azir. Like, this guy is freaking awesome in terms of entertainment value, but also he has the chops to pull it off.
Exactly, and that's what makes I think this mid lane matchup really interesting in this series. Obviously, Care coming in to replace Doinby when Doinby left FPX. That little bit of history between the two players, the two teams as well. And Care has got a very difficult task ahead of him if he's to be able to in any way contain Doinby in this matchup. But worth looking quickly, Mel obviously going to be global banned for the first couple of weeks of her release. And the first pick, Cassante for NIP into Shanji's hands. I think that Shanji was a bit of an unsung hero on NIP in their series versus IG, obviously playing against the Shy. Sort of the same job that we had for Care this game applied to Shanji last series, where we were just hoping that he could keep the Shy in his place, and for 3 out of 4 games he did exactly that.
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the things in that series too is that Shanji did such a great job of being a distraction and just giving NIP so many windows to secure important objectives for themselves. But we are in the draft phase. Cassante being locked in for Shanji. Pretty standard blind tank top lane pick to open up space for other of his teammates to lock in certain champions that they want to see what FPX is showing before they go ahead and commit. And what FPX is showing right now is, once again, pretty standard. Jace that could be flexed between solo lanes, Corki that could be flexed between Care or Bat. More than likely, this probably will end up in the hands of Care, since even though they did lose their game against RNG, it was a massive game 4, and he was putting out a ton of the team's damage share.
Yeah, and I mean, the flexibility on red side just continuing to be offered, right? I think that the Aurora as an answer, it doesn't mind playing against the Jace or the Corki. You're able to pretty much match their ranges. You're going to deal a lot of damage to them when they're in the laning phase. And I like the Viego for Arki here as well. Getting to see him on these reset champions once again, making sure that he can continue his success from the previous series, completely manhandling Jijia in the majority of those games. And for FPX as well, I like the idea of taking this Sejuani quite early on, to be honest. You're looking at the ability to keep some person locked down and in place. If I find a stun onto Doinby, I've got the damage, the follow-up to try and pick that off, right? The long-range poke already for FPX is actually quite high. I throw a Glacial Prison at somebody who's caught out. I've got rockets, Frost Bomb into Accelerated Shock Blast. A lot of tools already for FPX that they can use to pick a target out.
Yeah, and I'm curious if FPX are, you know, just based on the 1v1, it doesn't seem like Sheer's going to, or whoever is piloting the Jace is going to veer away from tank Jace, but you know, Corki Jace, if Jace builds full AD, that's powerful poking siege, a composition foundation for themselves there. Now, one thing I do want to note, we didn't catch this in our pre-show, but Shadow is actually playing for jungle tonight instead of Sorrow. And just, you know, for those that are not familiar with the two players, Sorrow was brought up from FPX's academy team and is a rookie, but I think in this series, a loss would mean the end of FPX's split, and they don't want that to happen, and so they have to bring in someone like Shadow, who is more experienced.
So a loss here for FPX in this series doesn't outright eliminate them. It does pretty much sign their fate. The only other way that they get in is through a series of 1-3 or 1-2 tiebreakers, where all teams lose to NIP, but then trade wins against each other. So there is still that small possibility that they all end on 1 and 2, and then a weird tiebreaker ruling will probably decide who goes through. But either way, a series that you do want to win, without a doubt, right? You don't want to be leaving it to the fates of A, other games, and B, tiebreaker scenarios as well. But for FPX, they continue to double down on now having a decent frontline for all these pokey champions. The Rel as a secondary form of engage as well, alongside that Sejuani. And for me, for FPX, just about rounding out what they're going to look for as that magic damage source, whether they want it in the top lane, whether they want it in the mid lane, or whether they want it in the bot lane as well. Their flexibility is still fully open, and that's meant that NIP need to play with that in mind when they're looking for these picks. I love the Leona already. Typically when you see these AP champions, they are going to be immobile, and Leona is just so good at picking off those immobile mages.
Yeah, just a really big fan of how FPX have hidden their cards so far, and that flexibility now could give them the edge in who they are sending into the Aurora, as Care has decided he's gonna go with the Victor, gonna try to match mage for mage, something with a little bit of extra team fighting power, and trying to match the utility that the Aurora can cause just through in pure disruption. But this does mean that the Jace ends up top lane, and then Corki will be going to bot in the bot.
Yeah, Jace versus Cassante, honestly, very typical matchup that we're going to get to see. It's similarly down on that bot side. I'm quite happy with the Misfortune pick specifically for Leave. Corki, one of these bot lane AD carries that is actually very aggressive, can trade very, very well in the level 1 through 3. The added damage onto Valkyrie as well, something that we might not get to see, but something that really helped him out in those trades that you're looking for, those really big all-ins. But Misfortune, a champion that can match that, which is always very important. So going to be looking down at that bot side as well when you've got two really hyper-focused towards those early game AD carries, because Leave and PP God were absolutely destroying the IG bot lane in 2 versus 2. Every single game, Leave and PP God were coming out with advantages in a bot lane matchup that we were sort of unsure about, not certain where to go. And one of the stories that I'm going to be looking at just sort of subconsciously is this Leave redemption arc, because coming out of EDG was touted as this really high prospect, then came in and wasn't quite living up to his potential, but so far on this NIP roster hasn't had those same shakes as, yes, Costa, a couple of situations where he's still getting caught out on mid waves, but overall his performance in the IG series led them to victory.
I know that in the pre-show we put a lot of focus in the two mid laners, since they have such a, close relationship in terms of working together within the same org, while Care was behind Doinb as he was in the main roster for FPX for so many years before then leaving. But I kind of want to jump on the Leave and PP God train with you for this particular game, because that big surprise of Leave and PP God not only getting the better of Galameko, but multiple times and isolated solo kills against those two, against players who we have such high respect for just based on their international accomplishments. Now, it's a very aggressive level 1 that FPX have gotten for themselves. They got decent chunks out of a couple members, but the most, no one burned any sums. They just got some deep vision into this red quadrant.
Yeah, so it's looking at where the wards are, and importantly, the wards are traded, so both teams are going to be looking for who is lane swapping. Are we going to get Australia lanes, standard lanes? Those wards in the respective, between the tier 1 and tier 2, are at an attempt to see who is going top side, who is going bot side. Now, looking at it, it looks like NIP won't have been spotted moving the Misfortune up to this top side. FPX now, they see Shanji,
and they're going to jump on him. There's the crash down. Bot gets a decent amount of damage thanks to the shred of that E. And Shanji, no choice, forced to flash.
Yeah, and I mean, the goal of this situation is to deny experience from top laner. It's what the looks like for you as a team that is initiating or that is dealing with a lane swap. And if you're taking this adaptation where they're going to lane both Care and in the mid lane, there's nobody on this top side for the MF and the Leona to dive, so they're just going to try and trade the plates, but ultimately fortification means that this bot side is going to go down much quicker, and the FPX should be coming out with that gold advantage. My concern is the experience spread among 4 people, depending on if Shadow wants to come down as well, and that cost Bat and Jue as well.
Which is why you see Shadow trying to stay away from the minion wave and just use his presence to zone Shanji away. And by keeping the enemy top laner at level 1 without a flash, it is just so hard for Shanji to actually get anything. Now, he is playing Cassante, so he will still be pretty useful if he's down on an economy and levels, but you definitely don't want to be receiving this treatment for too long in this early laning phase.
No, definitely not. And I mean, the graphic side is actually very useful. You can see what level they've got. Obviously, Sheer working his way towards level zero experience at all this game. So the question becomes, how long can they keep this going, and is it going to cost them? And again, thinking about what that gold looks like and what does this translate to for teams looking at those neutral objectives to begin with. So frequently we see Robson, but I think that through this early stage of the game, it's going to be about swap out these lanes now for FPX to get that early game advantage in the neutrals.
Sure thing. And Care might be in trouble trying to crash this wave, but Doinby's now going to set up a gank alongside Aki, and he's just got nowhere else to go. A clean route from Aki, and that sets up first blood for Doinby.
And it's very easy. Hold on, skirmishing down on bot side. They're desperately trying to get Shanji a little bit of experience, but just by looking at the goal, out that first blood having gone down, you can see that there's a lot of turret gold to the back of FPX. You know, only one plate taken on that top goes down on the bot side. They were able to take 3 plates back down, and just as somebody made way into it, you might get a glimpse of experience. He's forced back up to the... He's got to lane versus the Jace, who's, you know, float on him already.
Yeah, couple things. One, Shanji has not gotten a single CS, and I think barely any experience. And I almost feel like
no XP,
he knew the camera was looking at him, which is why he threw up the emote. But I also just want to make sure you know, Rude. Oh, hang on. You might got some action here. The cleanse forced out of leave as he got a little too close to the turret. Jue was trying to stun him under the tower, but no harm, no foul. Just now down to summoner spell as Jue might maybe look for a Q flash setup, but leave predicts it, and they make Jue look silly. PP God forcing him to flash away.
Okay, and actually, Jue thought about the flash, was looking for the flash, but actually didn't have the range for it. The angle on it was looking like he was trying to interrupt the flash on the Misfortune, but it means that the Rel has to back away also. PP God stood present, ready to stun up on the engage. And overall, we're seeing FPX largely new to the top lane, have that advantage down on the bot side, but the Misfortune coming back out now that those resets have fully come through, with that Rectrix looking to make her way back out to that top side. And once again, this is a bit of recompense, a little bit of help for Shanji maybe, because they're looking for those grubs.
Might come down to who has push in this mid lane though too. And thankfully for Care, if we remember his series game 3 against RNG just before the Lunar New Year break, he burned flash. Oh, hang on. Doinby, well, that's the flash gone. But the nice thing for FPX is that Care didn't burn flash in the previous gank attempt, which is what really caused the spiral of Care getting completely zoned out of multiple XP and just not having the greatest game 3 against RNG, and it really put FPX behind. This time, it did come at the cost of Doinby's ultimate, but Care is still doing a decent job of making sure not to fall too far behind. It does end up in Grubs going over to NIP, but FPX will trade the Dragon for it.
They are getting continual as well. So this Corki is going to be quite the threat to think moving through this game. Has opted into the tier, so get up nice and early. There are rumors as well of this new where you just tier, you go Essence Reaver in sort of C for you. Takes about the same amount of time, and it is a lot more expensive in terms of a build path to go for, but can hit very, very hard as we move later on. Regardless, not going to be the case this time around, as we'll get to see whether or not this tier and the Trinity Force that's likely going to come with it comes as a product of the turret, the platings, or some as so far for old largely even. Only real difference jungle duo where Aki Doinby only able to take down Care, but also farming up quite well also. Sejuani spending a significant amount of time just making sure that there is pressure down on the bot side, and this turret is...
It's not Sorrow playing through the bottom side of the map for FPX, but this was the game plan that got a lot of FPX's early gold leads in their series against RNG when it was Sorrow playing in jungle. So I think, just learning from the gains and experiences that they had, Shadow is now implementing that straight away in this first game, trying to enable Jue and get him off the map so that he can start making plays, which is one of the big things that had FPX really given a lot of momentum in netting their first win of that series against RNG. So now, first brick going over to them, Jue on this Rel. I'm expecting to see this guy make some plays.
Yeah, I mean, level 6 as well, not too far in the distant future, about halfway through level 5 to do that. Dway, obviously a little of pressure on him so far this game, or as we move into the later portions of this game, because he is going to be that leading team fighting the Sejuani can start target. But if you're looking for men be engaged upon, Dway is the person. Look at how these team comps are going to look to play out as we get later on into the game. I do quite like what FPX have for themselves, where they can just use the rel to combo to do great work.
As you pointed out, he's not level 6 yet, so the Magnus Storm would be really nice to have before he starts really forcing the hand of NIP. Now, I am curious what the objective setup is going to be next, though, for both of these teams. Grubs spawning in 1.5 minutes, Dragon 2.5 minutes, so there's still definitely some time to set up vision on the top side of the map. The fact of the matter is, though, that FPX not necessarily super far ahead of the curve, but they're not necessarily that far behind. Everyone on NIP, save for top lane, is just a few hundred gold shy or ahead in terms of an advantage. And just to update everyone at home, I think we're gonna... How's the internet, Rude? I'm not gonna lie.
It's shaky, buddy.
It's still a little shaky.
It's shaky. Yeah.
Okay, well, let me know. I am okay holding it down on the 4 for a little bit if you need a chance to reset or something, because I want to be able to hear your voice. Oh, baby, we got to fight! And Shadow's gone. The bullet time just ripped that piggy to shreds. And that's going to open up the window to at least get this vision control down for Grubs. Shadow will spawn in the next 10 seconds, but it might not be enough time to be able to advance and contest for the second rotation of Grubs.
Oh, no, still not.
Darn. All right. We're going to figure out how we're going to get Rude back in 100% pristine condition. Until then, I think it's going to be a solo cast until then. As Aki's now starting up the second rotation of Grubs. 4 have already been secure for himself. Shadow trying to lead the charge here. Leave might be the target. He's got a flash and a cleanse, already using the cleanse on one of them, but that means that he cannot escape until he barely flashes after escaping the Sejuani ultimate. Got another all-in from Shanji trying to lay down the pain on Sheer, but it just gets the flash out. And the rest of FPX, somehow, just the pressure of forcing Leave out of the pit means that they can at least deny 6 Grubs away from NIP. So no doomsday scenario where NIP have 2 able split pushers inflicting 2 Void Mites worth of damage to the structures. And we got 30 seconds before the next dragon spawns. We'll get a quick replay and see how all this came about. And unfortunately, even though Leave has both summoner spells available, it's just not possible for him to actually enter this choke point without getting the rest of NIP to help him. So FPX immediately turn on to him. They don't get the kill, but now this is a misfortune with no summoner spells available. So the next time that FPX want to set up for this objective, which should be the dragon, if Leave is ever caught walking in a place where he shouldn't be in no man's land, I mean, this misfortune should just be dead on my screen. Sejuani ultimate doesn't look like it's going to be available in time for that unless they stall and do a good job of kind of jockeying around, waiting for this minion wave to be pushed in. Oh, Bot just sends it on to Leave. He knows he's got no sums, but he's got a solo mission. The rest of NIP collapsed before the rest of FPX could really assist. And that is not the ideal way of really punishing a summonerless misfortune there. I can respect the vision, but gotta be a little more patient on how you're finding those plays. Because now FPX, that window where this misfortune should have been dead meat on their screen is completely forfeited. And now it's the second dragon of the game going over to NIP. Just checking. Doesn't look like Rude is back yet. We're just getting a status check on when he'll be able to join us. I really want Rude to come back because this is the first time we've got a chance to cast together, and the internet gods are not being kind to us at the moment, but, you know, I just want some RNG praise in the chat, or praises in the chat. Hopefully we can get Rudu back. As we're now a minute away from turret plates falling off. Karen Jue maybe thinking about a collapse here on the Doinby. Shadow also making the roam down towards the bottom side of the map. Aki at least is going to screen this Sejuani, and Doinby wants to turn it on. He recognizes that Care is a little too low on HP, and that burst damage from the Viego and the Aurora is just something you cannot disrespect. Jue is in trouble next as Aki just sends the Reset City all the way through the FPX Express. Bullet time is enough to take out Sejuani once again, and I fear NIP are just running away with this game.
Okay, maybe my internet works, maybe it doesn't, but NIP are dominating in this game, Mark. It is 6-0, 5-1 on Grubs. The Drakes are even, but that's all that FPX have so far.
My goodness. Rude, is it chalked? Is it
maybe.
Just game over? It might be chalked.
It's a 5k gold lead very early on into this game, and this is an FPX initiation as well. This was their attempt at trying to get something back, and it just fell so flat on its face. Shadow, trying to buy the time for his team to get involved, but Care, yes, he's trying to walk safely. Never mind, they're fighting again.
Well, Shanji's sending it to Care, but he's got reinforcements he's got to deal with. Shadow forcing the flash out of this Cassante. But NIP, I mean, they're totally fine if Shanji is doing the same thing as he was doing in the IG series and is just being a complete distraction and saying, sure, guys, you can focus all your attention on me while the rest of NIP is getting stuff done on the map.
I mean, and just to add some context to how just absurd Cassante still is, by the way, Riot. It was 2 levels down on the Victor there, was not even with a full item, was still probably going to win that 1 versus 1. So we'll just remember that when we're looking at how Shanji is able to have withstood so much early pressure, so much early, engagement from FPX, where he doesn't get experience for the first 4 minutes of the game, and then still goes out 1v1's enemy mid laner, 15 minutes into the game.
Rude, I think there's a lot of friends in our friend group that can stand to learn an example from Shanji. That
yeah,
if you get if you get completely denied so much CS and so much experience in the first few levels and you're level 1 for like 3-4 minutes, you might be wanting to scream FF and just get me out. But look at Shanji, man. He put up with it. He got through it.
Now what I'm gonna say here, Arthur, is that there's a possibility. Hold on, I'll hold that thought. PP God.
No, he's on a ward. The CC chain. Shadow had no idea that he was in full vision, and this guy
Red
is
buff.
almost dead. Bullet
Oh,
time once again. That's the 3rd time, Rude.
Solo El Pico, man. Just the tip of the MF ulti. Got to find the Sejuani to take him down. PP God. With another good engage, yes, on a ward, but absolutely more than able to find the kill onto the Sejuani. And there was a little statistic that was flown there. I do apologise that I don't quite know what it was, but PP God certainly making some tracks in the early stages of this matchup.
It's just giving flashbacks to the IG NIP series that we saw, where we didn't know what we were going to expect out of the Leaf PP God duo. Especially against, players like Gala and Mako who have, such high accomplishments both domestically and internationally. And yet they made them look like clowns. They dunked on them multiple times, especially in game 1. And this time around, it wasn't really a chance for a 2v2 isolated kill situation, but between Leave barely escaping by the skin of his teeth against FPX, and then PP God finding massive engages, and oh no, Care.
Oh no, Care. Oh, he's fine. Well, he's off HP, but he didn't get ulted, so, that's fine in my book.
I don't know. I don't feel fine that I just got dunked by 30% of my HP by 1 combo from Aurora, but unfortunately, that's just the state of the game right now.
Herald does take down that mid-tier 1 turret, and so far for NIP, their destruction of the map has been relatively meticulous. They took the 2 outer turrets in the side lanes, they moved their way into the mid lane, had the Herald ready, so they're going to use the Rift Herald to finish off that. They've now completed the outer turret sweep with Dragon spawning just in time as well. Their progression through the game is going quite well. They've got all the timers looking to be on sync, right? We've got the Drake that will spawn now, then they'll move up, start focusing their attention towards the Atacon, which is also down on the bot side, and maybe that'll lead into some tier 2 action as well. But for the most part, so far, NIP just controlling how this game gets played out, and at a certain stage as well, they're going to start to try and invade, start taking camps. It may even have already happened, looking at the disparity that's beginning to open up between Arky and Shadow. So once they can just control the bot side jungle, make sure that the Dragon, the Atakan is going to be theirs, again, just meticulous gameplay, slowly but surely making their way through this game, and not really giving FPX a way back in.
Yeah, pretty textbook stuff from NIP, and although I will say that FPX in a few of the opening moves kind of gift wrapped the lead for them, it is still, you know, credit to NIP for making the best out of the situation that has been gifted to them. And because the game does look pretty what's the polite way of saying this, Rude?
Jover?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. You know, it looks pretty signal for how things should play out. As FPX are trying to contest for this blue buff, and it might be ill-advised as there's the Aurora ult, there's the bullet time, and FPX suddenly realize, oh yeah, that's right. This jungle quadrant does not belong to us anymore, and that comes at the cost of Jue's life.
Who actually value, honestly, just keeping your flash at of back B through 5 in 100 again, isn't it?
The internet gods have come to smite you, Rude, I fear. We're gonna see.
It'll happen, I'm afraid. It's
maybe.
Yeah.
Take me through the replay, one step at a time.
I will try, and we can see that the blue buff, first of all, stolen away, but then Victor is CC'd. Significantly so that he can't actually find an ulti. No chance to get his fighting tools down, and unfortunately Jue does get sacrificed. Like I say, saving the flash, which I think is valuable, finding that 1 in 100 fight is going to be their best chance, and I think that that is only possible when Jue has flash. Getting PP God and Doinby locked down and finding Care, Sheer, a chance on them. Oh dear.
Oh man, I mean, they're just gonna jump on Shadow, taking advantage of the fact that he is one of the few people that can safely face check these bushes, but that's a flash gone from the Sejuani, and it's gonna make his job even harder to try and get into this river and contest for the Otacon, because if this goes over to NIP, I'm just at a loss for words of any reason that FPX can come back in this game.
It's really tricky, right? And Atakan just snowballs so much more. Well, there's just so few opportunities to enter through bot, but they've lost ball.
And they're going to look for the engage. PP God is the first one in. The bullet time looks so beautiful as the rest of FPX are forced to scatter, but wait a minute. They get the first reset for Aki, and now things are really going to be closed down for shop. FPX just got no fuel left in the tank. It looked bright for 1 second when they got the first kill on the PP God, but the rest of the dominoes fell, and NIP sweep all 5.
And you'll be happy to sacrifice your Leona if you're going to get 5 kills and an Atakan as well. You know the game state's bad when Leave is ulting you in the opposite direction to his base, and it's just going from bad to worse here for FPX. Constantly accelerating and making sure that just there's no way back into this, and they zone out the Corki. They recognize, okay, this guy's split, uses Valkyrie early, and as much as the cleanse and the flash buys a little bit of space, it's nowhere near enough. Bullet time is gorgeous as well, and again, Jue does a great job at distracting, but there's just no follow.
There's only so much that you can do when the rest of your damage dealers are under so much pressure. You have no reliable way of disrupting every single threat that NIP has assembled, because when you think about it, you have to deal with the Misfortune bullet time, you have to deal with the Aurora, you have to deal with the Viego on top of it all, and then if the Cassante is thrown into the mix, yeah, he's a tank, but he's got such high base damage and they're so far ahead that you have to treat him as just like a normal carry as well. So like, how do you deal with all of these threats trying to just slam their fist down all of FPX's throats?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is that they don't deal with it, and the current process of this game is that they are just getting walked on. And you know, the gold lead is continuing to increase, the objectives are just being taken single-handedly almost. NIP aren't really having to flinch all that much to make it happen. And when you're moving into this mid to late game now, 23 minutes in, Baron's going to be spawning in a couple of minutes. There's a Drake spawning in 15 seconds. NIP, I haven't really given this next Drake much thought, but they'll be able to get Soul Point here. They'll be able to continuously apply that pressure, put that timer on FPX as well, and make sure that really there is no way back in.
Yeah, it is so tough. And NIP are just doing their due diligence and knocking out structures one by one. Dwayme's gonna send it. Bullet time rips through the front line once again.
Yeah.
Good night shear. And maybe they get one on a PP God as he tanks up a lot of turret damage. It's just not enough to get a kill back over to FPX for Mercy. This inhibitor will fall, and it looks like a teleport is coming in. As no, oh nope, that's the Otacon GAs. You know what?
The good news is that they're throwing right now just to get withdrawn because it will still be faster. However, somebody didn't quite get the memo, and Shadow did end up having to lose his life for it. So in a change up from what we saw in the 1v1 earlier on, Shanji did lose the 1v1 initially to Care, so he did get withdrawn. However, he has teleport. So when Care had to go back to base and defend the Nexus turrets, Shanji just TP'd back down.
Uh-oh. Well, now he might have to leave. Care is going to lock him down with the W in the gravity zone, but PP God has arrived back to the field alongside the rest of NIP. And with the cavalry here, they escort Shanji back to safety. And he's just going to take a quick base while the rest of his team cleans up this dragon. And because we're both in alignment that this game is pretty much over, 10,000 gold advantage for NIP, I think it's a good time to just remind our lovely audience at home, you know, what is the significance of, you know, some of these players and their the intertwinement of their relationships. You know, we talked about a little bit before during the pre-show that Doinby did start with FPX, and one of the most significant things
made his name on this org.
Yeah, made his name on this org, and not only made his name on this org, but helped make a name for the org itself alongside the members of LWX, Crisp, Tien, and oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the top laner.
Hey man, that was so many years ago at this point. I'm not surprised. I don't know. My arms don't go by that far either. This is the 1v1 though down on that bot side that Shanji did lose finally. It was Gimgoon. Gimgoon
was the top laner. So all 5 of those individuals not only were able to net their own first LPL title, but it was also FPX's first LPL title in the summer 2019. Going to Worlds, first appearance for all 5, plus the org, then winning the World Championship. That is a feat that only SKT, 2013 SKT has accomplished, where in their first Worlds appearance, they win a World Championship. Like that is so remarkable, and a lot of the highs that FPX did achieve was when Doinby was on this roster.
It's an elite club, a prestigious club to be a part of, and you know, one that FPX can hold, and the one that Doinby will do for them as another fight on this top side, looking to put the final nail in the coffin.
PP God leading the charge. Here comes the teleport. Doinby casting down between worlds on his former organization as the rest of NIP just stormed the base. Nothing can save FPX when NIP are at an all-time high. And Shadow, forced to flash, will escape certain death, but can't say the same about the impending Nexus that is now completely exposed to NIP. And this series is going off to a great start for all the NIP fans at home. GG, well played. They lead the series 1-0.